So it's time to tie up this assessment that you've been doing for the last few weeks on what was life like in Nazi Germany between 33 and 45. You've had 4 weeks worth of doing this. Week 1 was propaganda and censorship. Week 2, you looked at terror. Week 3, young people in Nazi Germany. And this week, you've been looking at the Nazi treatment of minorities. So if we just have a little bit of a recap on what should be in each of the sections. First of all, in part 1, in propaganda and censorship, you should have mentioned some of these kind of things. You should have mentioned this guy, Dr. Joseph Goebbels. He was the propaganda minister for Nazi Germany. It was him who came up with the slogans, the posters, most of the ideas for getting the Nazi message across. He was a propaganda genius, even though he was obviously a very evil man. On the right-hand side, we've got the poster for the radio. Remember that the Nazis made radios incredibly cheap so that they could get one in every household in Germany. And that was a way of getting Hitler into those households because all of his speeches and all of his messages would get through to people. So they made those very cheap. Hopefully, you've also mentioned rallies. This is the rally stadium in Nuremberg, where they held rallies every summer. It wasn't so much holding the rallies for the people who were there, it was to show the rest of the world when people saw these kind of pictures and saw how many thousands or tens of thousands of people there were there. It gave the impression that the Nazis were incredibly powerful. So it was as much a message to other people as it was for the enjoyment of the people who were there. And then there's the use of posters. The Nazis were geniuses when it came to posters. Very simple language, very few words, very striking image. And this is a poster that just basically makes Hitler look like Christ. God is smiling down from the heavens on him. So mention those as well, perhaps even include some pictures. In your second section, you were looking at the use of terror and various instruments that the Nazis used, one of which was, of course, the SS, the Schutzstaffel. And they were originally Hitler's bodyguard, but grew to become the iron arm of the Nazi party. People were terrified of them in their black uniforms with their skull cap badges. And eventually they were the ones who masterminded the Holocaust. Then you had the Gestapo. This is Niederkircher Strasse in Berlin. This was the headquarters of the Gestapo, where the secret police were based. It was said that this was the scariest building in Berlin during the 1930s and 40s. The Gestapo were the secret police. You never knew when they were going to come and knock on your door and drag you out for interrogation. But the German people were terrified of them and terrified of one another. And then there were the concentration camps that the Nazis would use. This was the very first one at Dachau, near to Munich. And these were set up as soon as the Nazis came to power, to start with, not for Jews. They were for political prisoners, people who supported other political parties. And the idea was you go in these camps and you'd be re-educated. They would basically beat you and brainwash you so that you would support the Nazis. And if you didn't support the Nazis, then they'd beat you and torture you, and eventually they would kill you. Part 3 was all about young people in Nazi Germany. So we called this Youth in Nazi Germany, and we looked at things like the Hitler Youth, the Hitler Jugend, for boys aged 10 to 18, and the kind of activities that they did to prepare them, of course, to be brainwashed Nazis, of course, but also soldiers. Then there was the Bund Deutsches Mädel, or the League of German Maidens, again for girls 10 to 18, this time preparing them to be mothers and wives and to bring about the next generation of Nazi supporters. We looked at education, so hopefully you'll be able to mention a little bit about the timetables that German children would do in schools, and whilst they would do things like we would do, history and geography and German, which would be obviously their equivalent of us doing English, and there was music in there, but then look at some of the other ones, the science of breeding, domestic science with mathematics, sports, loads and loads of sports there to make these fit and healthy people so that the women, the girls, could produce lots of children and the men would become great soldiers. And then, of course, there was propaganda used particularly for children. Children's books would paint Jewish people and foreign people as the enemy, as scary people. In this picture here, it's trying to paint Jewish people as paedophiles that would prey on young German children. And these messages, utterly ludicrous, utterly ridiculous, but of course, if they're repeated in every child's book, the children would believe them. The last part, linking into what I've just said, was about the treatment of minorities. And you should have looked at the way that the Nazis believed in this thing called the master race. They believed in a group called the Aryans, these Northern European, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, strong warriors And they told lots of stories from history that the Germans were born to rule, and they wanted to create this society in Germany free of any influences that weren't blonde-haired and blue-eyed and strong Germanic tribes, which then made lots and lots of people believe the same way and believe that those people who didn't fit those categories really should be moved out of Germany. During the 1930s, there were a series of laws and actions taken against particularly Jewish people to encourage them to leave Germany so that they wouldn't be part of the German nation anymore. And this timeline here shows you a few of those, like banning them from swimming pools, stopping them having pets, even making them change their name, having to wear a Star of David when they went out of the house. All of them designed to make these people say, forget this, don't want to live in Germany anymore, and leave the country. But all of that changed in 1939 with the Second World War. Once that starts and the Germans start invading other countries, they need to come up with a different solution. And the first one they come up with is to put Jewish people and people that they didn't get on with into ghettos, small areas of town behind walls, in the hope that basically they would starve or get diseases. But when that didn't work, they put them into work camps, concentration camps, and eventually into extermination camps, like the one you see at the bottom there, which is Auschwitz in Poland. And those camps, while some people would go in and work, many people would go straight in on the train and be taken straight to the gas chambers. Those are the areas that you should be writing about. And so what should you be doing now? Well, you need to type up your final section on the treatment of minorities that you've been learning about this week. You need to put all of those 4 sections together, and then you need to send me that assignment. Now, you can email me the work as an attachment. So if you've done it electronically, just send me an email and attach your work as a Word document or a PowerPoint document, whatever you see fit. Or you can email me the work as photographs from your book. So if you've written this work, take some photos and then just attach those in an email. Best of all, you can hand in the work through the assignment section in Edmodo. If you go to the 9L page in Edmodo, there is a section which says assignments. It will say assignments due, and it will say life in Nazi Germany. And all you have to do is post your assignment there. Whatever happens, I will grade the assignments at Edmodo. So if you send me your work as an email, I will send you an email back to say that I've got it, but your final grade will be in the Edmodo page. And if you're struggling with any of this, just drop me a line. We've got a holiday time coming up for you to catch up on any other work. So if you need that extra time, just drop me a line, let me know and tell me what you're struggling with, and I'll help you. Okay? All the best. See you soon.